Hey, this is my recreation of Whomps Fortress from Super Mario 64 in Blender 3D. It's a project I've taken on for, I guess, about a month or two to improve my texturing and modeling skills within it. Also, just because it's a game I'm quite a big fan of, and thought it would be relatively easy, although I guess it didn't quite shake out that way. And I guess I'm going to explain here how I did it. So, modeling is what I started off with. Didn't really have a consistent way of doing this right from the start. I just used the actual game itself as like a closest reference. Eventually I'd incorporate this, which is just a cube, which is supposed to represent, I guess, the character in game. And I'd use that to kind of try and measure out the height. Because of the actual structure, I started using this a bit later, but the actual floor plan of the thing as well, which you can see is quite different in this. Just because I used some more boxy modeling to begin with to create the shapes, but it's not too detrimental, it's not too bad. And a lot of it still looks the same, at the cost of some things like less stairs here. A lot of it I just actually modeled on one thing here, not this one. But this here is the main thing, this is just one object. I've done a lot of that just with extrusions and inserts, etc. And for making these longer faces, because it's quite low poly style, I just grab some of these edges, for example. I might have to create one or two and where I needed them. And first I have to fill. That work out pretty nicely. And geometry is pretty clean here, so yeah, I'm not too disappointed with the results. After that though, go into the texturing, which is where I found a little bit of a snag, because initially I wanted to do a lot of this procedurally, and to some extent I actually did for a lot of things like this sign here, used procedural textures, but in combination with these, which is the actual textures, you can see how I created this here, just a simple wave texture, and other cases too, like this star, it's just a mission material. This here is just principal BSDF with specular and roughness turned and down. But yeah, primarily I've tried to use the actual textures from the game to emulate it better, which has worked very nicely. You can see like some of the enemy types here, the Thwomp here, the Whomp, that goes the right way around. But initially I had a little bit of a snag with this. Initially just tried using this, which is what I found online, just a big texture grid with everything I needed on there, which is pretty good. To Boo's caster. But of course I ran into some problems with this. They can't really use this for the whole thing. They can't assign the UVs across this whole big texture here just for one square, because obviously it doesn't line up and it'll be stretched across, which was fortunate to try to find another solution to that. Considered just subdividing this and assigning it to each individual face, but obviously that wasn't a great idea. But eventually I just decided, like so, snip it out, get what I needed, save it into some files, and then obviously when I'd need it, I'd just open it up here. I just saved a bunch of them in one folder, so I can just easily map across wherever I needed to get the right scaling and everything. Which once I did that, it was no problem really. Great. But yeah, I could use accurate scaling from the game, like I could count the bricks across here, just 20 or so, and then I could recreate that. So having good reference was quite essential here again. And yeah, it turned out pretty well. I think it looks a lot like the actual game. There are a few issues. You can see there's not everything's perfectly aligned, but I think it's workable. And it's turned out, again, pretty accurately, so can't complain too much. There are some more rougher instances, like under these islands. I had to map each one of these individually. And you can see here where I've cut in a face. You can see some of the faces are a little bit disjointed. I also did face some challenges with these fence textures, which was actually just some planes with the texture mapped on and then cut out around, which has a bit of a higher poly count, but ultimately gets the job done. After that, there's not really much else to mention here. But this here, this tree is also 2D texture, like in the original game, which is constrained to the camera. So wherever you move it, it'll follow. So it gives the illusion of still looking three-dimensional somewhat. Did also try at some point to model this just as it was with some texture painting, which didn't turn out as great. You can see it has got 3 dimensions, but barely. But yeah, wraps up the texturing. Lastly, really, post, which is not very much to tell here either. Just a big sun lamp. It's kind of lighter yellow shading. And then also just an environment coloring here. Strength tried to turn down. But I guess it's relatively successful. I wasn't able to find a good HDRI, so yeah, you can see without the lighting, it doesn't look great at all. It really reflects the light of the blue and the influence of that. But I wasn't able to find a good sky texture, but I think it works out alright. And really, that's about it, I think. Wasn't too bad overall. There were a few hard points I got a little stuck on, but I think at the end, results turned out pretty nicely. Another look at the top perspective. I can just cycle around these. And yeah, that's about it.